Hardhat Hockey. Welcome in. It is July 28th. I got the Olympics on this morning. It's cooled off a little bit in California, which is a nice change of pace from our last episode. Joined with me, as always, from the East Coast, well, coastal area, more of the Rust Belt, if you will. From Columbus, Ohio, Grant Miller, firing off the cannon. Grant, how you doing?
Feeling good this morning, Grant. Thanks for the shout out. We're rocking and rolling here.
We are rocking.
Sunday.
Folks,
yeah.
We've got quite the episode for you. So, Grant, we're starting to get to the point with this show and in our traditions and our stalwart supporters where we can look back on some milestones and our best moments, if you will, as we start to build a little bit of heritage, tradition, history. And this episode is going to be one of those moments. If you've been with us from the beginning, you know episode 3, we had our first interview with hometown hero of Boston, Massachusetts, Matt Connelly. Matt Connelly, a lot of ties to the Northeastern hockey community, stalwart Boston Bruins fan, and a great supporter and great friend of Hardhat Hockey. He's with us here today. So without further ado, and unconfirmed rumors, there's lineage here to the Patriots of Boston at the Boston Tea Party with the Connelly family. Unconfirmed, I'll let him speak to that. But without further ado, Mr. Matt Connelly, thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, great. Trent and Grant, thanks for having me on. I love your content and what you're doing and bringing together a widening community of hockey fans and people that are passionate, both suppliers and fans. And it's my pleasure to join you guys. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Matt. And with that, speaking of the best fans in the world, Hardhat Hockey fans, we want to hear from you. Facebook, Twitter, email us at hardhathockey1@gmail.com. We're wrapping up the Atlantic Division today with the Boston Bruins and opening up the Metropolitan Division predictions. Whoever reaches out to me first, this is a once-in-a-lifetime offer. I'm going to mail you a Hardhat Hockey sticker. You heard it here first. Take advantage of this opportunity and more of that to come in the months down the line. To get the creative juices flowing this morning, we're going to open up with a question for the fans, and I'm going to answer this, and boys, feel free to chime in with your own answers. If you could make one trade for your team right now, what would it be? And it's got to be realistic, right? So don't be, getting fantasy land with me. Put on the
qualifier really.
Yeah.
Less fun, Trent.
So I had a thought about this. I'll let you all think about it for your answers, but I'm a big fan. I texted Grant this week of a couple of the Philadelphia Flyers forwards who we just so happen to be previewing today. So with that, Morgan Frost is a 25-year-old center who was kind of on the outs with Torts last year, which is no surprise if you've followed John Tortorella before. A lot of young guys have been on the outs with Torts before. $2.1 million last year of that bridge deal, and I don't know if they're going to have the appetite to lock him up. So I wouldn't mind seeing the Avs throw a second-round pick that way. 25 years old, maybe not worth a first anymore, but certainly can provide the Avs with a little depth that they desperately need. So that's what I was thinking about. Anybody else from Columbus or the Boston area have a thought on their team?
I was going to ask if I could get Panarin back, but you kind of threw that out saying it wasn't realistic, and it's probably not. There's not a ton of guys I'd want. Trading's tough. If I could just maybe force them to sign with me, that might be a different story. But it's a fun hypothetical. It's the hypothetical that keeps us going through the summer here, Trent and I.
Yeah, from Boston's perspective, I think they did a nice job picking up some depth on defense and a little bit at center, which we'll talk about later. But I'd love to get a little more scoring punch up front. So love to get somebody. I'm not sure like a Mitch Marner type, but someone that can find the back of the net consistently.
Matt, I agree with you, and I've got a nice take that I think you'll appreciate later on. I don't want to ruin the surprise for the Boston preview. Let's roll right into Hockey Team Kaboom, a summer tradition that has really taken off and running with it this summer. Hockey Team Kaboom is now sponsored by the Roseville Skate Town in Roseville, California, Northern California's premier home for men's league hockey at all levels. Sign up today and receive your complimentary skate sharpening and a free case of Moosehead Lager for your men's league heroes. Fun fact, that's where I play my men's league hockey. So it's just fitting that they sponsor.
Keep it in the neighborhood.
That's terrific.
Hockey Team Kaboom, yeah. Coming up on the playoffs, we're really excited. Boys, all 4 lines are going to be firing. So Hockey Team Kaboom this week is types of beer. So with that, today we've got pale ale, lager, wheat, and a couple nice takes from our friend Mr. Connelly. Pale ale description. We know how this works, Grant. Is a popular beer style that's known for its malty flavor, medium body, and light golden or amber color. Pale ales are brewed with pale malt and ale yeast, typically have a more balanced flavor profile than the other types of ale, moderate to high hop character, and noticeable malt backbone. Some famous pale ales, Oscar Blues, Sierra Nevada are notable additions.
Yeah, so this is like your most balanced flavor profile. This is kind of what the platonic taste of like a beer is. So when you think of this, it's like, what is the most hockey team out there? And I'll give this to you, Trent. It might be a little outdated. It screamed Colorado Avalanche to me.
Yes, sir.
The image of the cup might be fading a little bit in the memory, but I don't know. I just thought of like a team that could do it all. And when the ads are firing, that was them. So
yeah,
I was giving you a good punch there. The pale ale, you know you're drinking one.
I got to tell you, I don't play for the team, but you filled my heart a little bit right there. So we'll move on to the lager. A crisp, clean, and refreshing taste. It's known for its smooth mouthfeel, subtle hop bitterness, and lighter color than ales, ranging from pale golden to amber. With this one, think Budweiser, think Coors. Sam Adams Boston Lager is a good addition. Obviously, Sam Adams has a wide variety. So lager, Grant, where are we at?
So this is kind of where you're getting into my typical style of beer. These are ones you can have. Maybe you can have multiple of these at any one sitting, and it still is smooth on the fifth one as it was the first one. Mix in a water though. This just screams Pittsburgh Penguins to me. It's just blue collar. It's rough around the edges, but gets the job done. Yuengling is another famous lager.
Yeah.
Yuengling's Western Pennsylvania. I have to give this one to my neighbors just out east, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Grant. I think a Rolling Rock, Penguins, crisp, clean, and classic.
Well, my grandpa loved a Rolling Rock. Classic.
Speaking of lagers, this men's league, summer league that we're in right now was my first introduction to Moosehead Lager. Highly recommend if you can ever get your hands on a Moosehead. Very good Canadian beer. Okay, wheat, typically light in color, low to medium in alcohol content, lacks bitterness. They have a soft mouthfeel and notes of fruit and spice such as orange peel or coriander. Wheat beers are often easy to drink and refreshing, making them good summer beers. Think Blue Moon or Allagash White.
Okay, so this is a little more exotic. This is a little bit more, maybe, you're building your team a little differently. You want to stand out. This might be a little tough here, Trent. I don't know. I've got an idea, Grant. I'd say this would be the Leafs right here, right?
Okay. Kind of like you said, kind of exotic, but lacks bitterness. Yeah. Some spice and orange peel and coriander in there, right? But I'd go with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, that's a good one. It might have been too early to tell because we haven't seen him on the ice, but something about the Utah Hockey Club, kind of the way they're building the team, leads me that way. Their logo kind of looks like the Blue Moon logo in a weird way. That was my first inclination, but it might be too early to give them that classification.
Nice connection there with the logo. You're absolutely right. And Matt, on the Maple Leafs note, I don't know, last week's episode, I hope they've forgiven me and are back listening again. It's just for fun. I do apologize for predicting that the Leafs will not make the playoffs this year. So we don't need.
Well, you gotta put your takes out there.
You can't be one of those
sitting on the fence.
You can't be one of those analysts that just says everyone's going to do well and make the playoffs. Like you gotta back up what you're saying. So that wraps up our description edition here. Matt, I know you had a couple takes on your own beer selections.
I'll just give one take. Just thinking you can't talk beer and not think of the great sports fans in St. Louis, right? With Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser being such a big part of that city, and those fans just being, terrific baseball fans and certainly terrific hockey fans way back to the old days, which is before your time when they played in the old Checkerdome, the Ralston Purina. So shout out to the St. Louis Blues, since we're talking beer and Budweiser and classic towns and fans. And I think it's a it's just a great city and a great sports town. So shout out to St. Louis.
Hard to beat those Clydesdale commercials, that's for sure. Let's move right into the transaction train station. All aboard Grant and Matt this morning. Out of the Buffalo region, the Sabres locked up goaltender Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who we sang his praises on the Sabres preview. He's going to have to be a stout staple of the team if they're going to find any success this season. They locked him up to a 5-year by $4.75 million deal. Last year, 54 games played, 27 wins, 2.57 goals against average, and a .910 save percentage, which is pretty good on a underperforming team. So I like this deal for Sabres. Any other thoughts here for anyone?
Well, I'm looking at the cap hit right now. Not that it matters a whole heck of a lot. I think Buffalo's got pretty significant cap space, but you're right. We sang his praises. You hope that maybe Buffalo can get this figured out this coming year. But
yeah, my takes are, I think it's a good signing because I love Finnish goalies. Finland, for a country with not a large population, just has produced a tremendous amount of quality goalies, and big goalies being 6'5" or in. On a personal note, I love Devon Levi from my alma mater, Northeastern. He's a terrific goalie. I know he might start the season with the Rochester Americans, but I know he's going to add value to that goalie rotation up in Buffalo.
Nice connection there. You're
so right about Finnish goalies. I remember the Calgary Flames, Mika Kiprusoff used to haunt entire Western Conference. The Philadelphia Flyers were busy as well. They locked up their local hero, been a Flyer since the get-go. Travis Konechny signs an $8.75 million deal. Last year, played 76 games, 68 points, and was a +4. I would say on a middling, more, average team. They definitely overperformed from where the predictions were. So we'll see if they can build on that. Being a +4 on a team that didn't make the playoffs, I find to be a definition of a two-way player. So
they were picking up speed there for a little bit. It kind of looked like they were they had it figured out. 8 years, 8.75?
Yeah, I don't know how well this deal ages, but they definitely, 8 years is an exclusive right of the current team. So if you're signing a free agent from a different team, the max you can sign them to is a 7-year deal. Whereas if they are on your team, you can give them that extra, which can incentivize them to stay if they don't want to pick up shop and move across the country. So
our friends at Puckpedia are showing that this has a no movement clause after this year as well, or when this kicks in. So he's going to be there for a while. Looks like this is a big time. You earned it. Be the guy type of contract.
Yeah, these type of deals are interesting because what there are is they're betting that the salary cap will rise, right? And as we know, the salary cap is based on overall revenue. So when you look at the TV contract recently inked by the NBA, I think that really augurs well for upside for the salary cap for the NHL going forward. Not that they're going to be at the same levels at the NBA, but content seems to be of value.
With that, Matt, I know this is kind of a little slightly off topic, but the TNT Turner broadcast is no longer going to be broadcasting the NBA. And we know a few years ago they came into the hockey world, and I've really enjoyed what TNT's brought to the sport. So maybe there'll be some more. They'll push a little more content towards hockey as that being I think one of their few sports licenses. We can see how that kind of develops with the next TV deal. But I thought that was kind of interesting that news is kind of picked up this past week.
Yeah, great point. Great point, Grant.
The TNT crew, I think, is the best one. That's with Lundqvist, right?
Yep.
Lundqvist and Bissonnette and Gretzky.
Yeah,
I have to give out shout outs to my Ohio guy. I'm a huge fan of Bucci-Gross and ESPN. He's still doing a great job. I liked when him and Torts were on ESPN that first year. Now, obviously, Torts is back behind the bench, so it's a little different, but those TNT guys are great.
Yeah, I agree. Butchie is such a great hockey ambassador and so knowledgeable at all levels of hockey. He's terrific. And it'd be great to get him on this pod sometime. He'll have great take.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
That'd be fantastic. Bucci-Gross was nice enough to respond to me on Twitter one time with some hot college hockey takes. So I was seeing
He's very active on it. He loves to talk to you. Yeah.
I was seeing stars there for a second. Okay, that wraps up Transaction Train Station. Let's open up NHL housekeeping. Everyone get your favorite. I know I cleaned the floors this morning. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times the last few weeks. There's dog hair everywhere with our new 1-year-old Labrador. So we got this upgraded, pretty state-of-the-art Swiffer that does a nice job with all the dog hair. So highly recommend.
Those are fun.
Okay, out of Columbus, Grant, fire that cannon, baby. You got Patrick Laine out of Players Assistance Program, probably boosting maybe potential trade value a little bit with that news. He hasn't played more than 56 games in the last 4 seasons and is coming with the $8.7 million cap hit. I'd say the upside, though, is there's clearly a high ceiling still for him. So they're going to have to maximize that to get as much value as they can. I imagine a deal will be struck relatively soon.
Okay, so Patrick Laine played 18 games last year. He broke his clavicle in December, and then while rehabilitating that in late January, entered the program for mental health reasons. Patrick Laine has not had a easy run of things here in Columbus. His father passed away 2 seasons ago. He came here right kind of at the tail end of that, like, half COVID season where you weren't playing teams in Canada. You couldn't travel. The travel restrictions with the team were really rough. He's had some kind of injuries that have derailed some promising seasons. He looked really good when we had Jakub Voracek on the same line with him. He's a guy that kind of needs service. He needs the puck played to him. Still is great on a power play when he's healthy and out there. He's only 26. I think there's still a lot of good hockey to be had with Patrick Laine. And I want what's best for him because he's been great as a player when he's been healthy out here. I just think sometimes expectations was that he was going to be this 40 goal scorer in Winnipeg. And I think if he played a full season, if he can get a couple full seasons under his belt, he might be able to at least get up to 30, 35 goals a year. I don't think that's out of question. But it seems like this is going to be it for him in Columbus. GM Don Waddle has mentioned he wants to, let him get a fresh start more than anything. It's not, that we don't think he's good or, has value. It's just he needs a fresh start. We're kind of making changes here as an organization. And unfortunately, the Patrick Laine experience in Columbus just seemingly never really got to take off like we thought it was going to. But $8.7 million, it's pretty big, but it's steep. But I think if a team has the cap space or is competing, he adds a lot when he's out there. He can take over stretches of seasons, and we saw it here in Columbus a few times. So
yeah, I just hope his wellness recovery trajectory continued to go in a great direction, and wish him the best.
Still a young guy. I mean, only 26. It's tough. And, you lose your father. I don't wish that on anybody. So you never know what happened, how he's handling that. But, I think a fresh start will do him great.
Yeah, hopefully they can get that figured out soon. If you're like me, you've got the Olympic broadcast on this morning. Always a great time anytime the summer or the winter Olympics roll around. Admittedly, probably am more of a fan of the winter for obvious reasons. And we got big news in that department this past week. Salt Lake City has been declared the host of the 2034 Winter Olympics. The more I think about it, the less and less you see American cities actually stepping up to host the Olympics. I think because it is such an endeavor and financial commitment. You got to reinforce the infrastructure of your city. There's security reasons, all kinds of stuff that can be a logistical nightmare. So with this opportunity, I'm not wasting it. I don't know how many more shots I'm going to get at seeing the USA hockey team on the ice in my lifetime. So assuming I'm good to go in 2034, God willing, I'm going to be there. So boys, if anyone would like to join me, I'll be in Salt Lake City around that time frame, February 2034. This is huge news.
Start saving your pennies now, Trent.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I could picture Hardhat Hockey, you and Grant on Media Row.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh,
by then, hopefully yeah.
Wait, if I could project something into the future, a decade from now, at Hardhat Hockey, we've got that kind of establishment. We're doing something right. So let's keep it rolling.
So this is 12 years. There's a young NHL guy right now that'll still be a wily veteran on the USA team.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, who's going to be on that team?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Let's build our USA hockey team. Yeah.
I got
That's a fun thought experiment.
hot take. Matthew Nyes, who's 21 from Toronto Maple Leafs, he'll be on the team. Just
Okay.
hot take.
There we go.
Definitely.
All right. Let's go right into our preseason primers. Kicking off today, our capstone project and in the end of our Atlantic Division predictions, the Boston Bruins. Last year finished second in the Atlantic Division. At the helm, you've got Don Sweeney, head coach Jim Montgomery, also known as Monty. Cap space available right now. You got $8.6 million, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Notable moves in the offseason. We signed Elias Lindholm, $7.75 million deal for the 29-year-old coming over from Vancouver. Nikita Zadorov also followed suit, following his teammate, 6 years by $5 million. I know he had a couple offers, so he wanted to win. Interesting that he took the Bruins offer, so glad to see that. I think that's going to be a great fit. Jake DeBrusk did depart from Boston. Seemed like maybe it was time to move on and have another fresh start, if you will, Grant. He went over to the Vancouver Canucks, and then they traded Linus Ullmark, I'm not even going to say backup goaltender, the 1A goaltender in the best tandem in the NHL this past season. He was traded to Ottawa. In return, Korpisalo's coming back from the Senators, along with Mark Kastelik and a 2024 first-round pick that we saw at the draft this summer. A lot of moves here, Matt. What do we think? How are we trending?
Yeah. I wasn't thrilled with the Linus trade since, the Bruins have not had a great history of drafting especially well. But one thing I do really appreciate the Bruins, they always do a great job of farming local talent. When they lost to the Blues in the Stanley Cup Finals, they had a more American players than any other team in the roster. And ironically enough, St. Louis Blues had more Canadian nationals on the roster than any other team. But when you look at, the Charlie Coyles from, Weymouth, Mass and BU, Matt Grzelcyk from Charlestown, Charlie McAvoy, them signing Mark McLaughlin, I love that kind of local pipeline of talent that adds to it. Jake DeBrusk moving, I think, is probably best for all parties. In big market cities, whatever the sport, but certainly for hockey, the Bostons, the Torontos, some people embrace that type of exposure and scrutiny and passion. And some people, it's a burden that affects their game. And I think Jake getting a fresh start and not that, a Canadian market's going to be any easier. I think he's learned from his time in Boston, and I think, he'll do well with that organization and the way they're going. I do like the approach on the blue line. As Trent and Grant, Nikita is a big man, 6'6", 248 pounds. Their whole defensive core is all over 6 foot. With Brandon Carlo, Hampus, Andrew Peak.
That seems to be the way things are trending. We're getting back to the era of big defensemen. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Vegas kind of, had that with Pietrangelo, and, the Bruins have moved on from smaller defensemen with Torrey Krug going to St. Louis a few years ago. And now Matt Grzelcyk, who, ironically enough, grew up 1 mile from TD Bank North Stadium, and his dad is on the Bull crew, at TD Bank North Garden. He goes to Pittsburgh. So we're sad to see him go, but I think it's great that they've really buttressed the back line with strength and depth. And I love, Monty, who I know, Trent, you're a big fan of from his time at DU. I love that he encourages defensemen to play offensively and to be in the game. The issue for the Bruins is their hole at center, from Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci retiring 2 years ago. The keys for that is Pavel Zacha, can he continue to develop and take that next step? Elias Lindholm, maybe he can capture that magic he had in 21, 22 when he was a 40-40 guy for the Flames. And it'll be interesting to see if the very young and promising Matt Poitras can develop and get a little more strength on that 20-year-old frame. But the one thing that the Bruins seem to always have, which has them relevant each year, is leadership continuity. Big Z and Bergie passing the baton to Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak is indicative of that. That they seem to be embracing that leadership role. And lastly, as far as the Bruins go, I want to give a shout out to David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha for the Czech Republic winning the IIHF World Championship in their home country. I was really glad to see that for both those guys.
That was fun to watch. Pasta is just a class act, and I'll never forget the fight with Matthew Tkachuk. Yeah, there does seem to be a certain amount of pressure on Lindholm, at least down the middle, but not the end of the world to have a guy like Elias Lindholm as your potential answer. The key forwards this year, we mentioned Pastrnak. He's 28, $11.25 million. We mentioned Lindholm's contract. Marchand, he's in the last year of that $6 million deal at 36 years old. I imagine he's going to be coming right back with a team-friendly deal as short as next summer. And then Zacha, 27 years old, $4.75 million. Also Charlie Coyle down the middle, who's no slouch. And he's a gritty guy who's been there before and has some playoff experience. So I do think between Marchand and Pastrnak, Lindholm probably spreads his wings a little bit, has a bigger role than maybe he had during the playoffs with Vancouver. So I think that works out. On the blue line, you mentioned McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, Zadorov, I think is going to be a great fit. Obviously a lot of value given the amount of offers he had this offseason. And Brandon Carlo, I'm a huge fan of. Matt, I know we talked about that a lot during their playoff matchup against the Leafs. I'm a huge fan of tell me if I'm saying this right. It's Mason Lowry, right?
Yes. Yep. From Shreveport, Louisiana, Trent.
How about that? Barksdale Air Force Base. What a town. Mason Lowry, 23 years old, last year of his entry-level contract. So it'd be it's critical to capitalize on this year of his growth and his progression. I see this kid having a big upside and a big ceiling. And Matt, I think you'd probably see, where does he fit on the pairings?
Oh, his development was absolutely terrific last year. You know, he's tall, he's gangly, he's kind of like a baby fawn out there. But when the speed of the game picked up in the playoffs, he really raised his game, and he was a terrific offensive defenseman for the playoffs. And, you know, he was a little bit of a defensive liability, but I think that is part of age and development and strength. And I think the upside for him is really terrific. And the Bruins have done a great job developing him.
We mentioned it last week talking about the Rangers. They locked up Brendan Schneider, young defenseman. But just like you said, there's growing pains with young blue liners, and they're not going to have the perfect defensive stats as they mature their game. So yeah, I agree completely. Keys to success this season. Hometown hero. It's hard not to love this kid, even if you are a Maple Leafs fan. Jeremy Swayman is going to be there for a long time coming. I think it's no secret that this kid has got Bruins painted all over him for the long term. A high value contract, I think, has got to be in the works. I don't foresee a bridge deal. Maybe you've got more insight there, but I think you try to lock him up for as long as you can and capitalize on the best value that you can get, because this is clearly going to be a long-term answer in the crease. Grant, I know you might disagree with me on your feelings about goaltenders.
You know, goalies are always tricky. I don't know. I mean, he looked so good in that playoff run. So it's hard to say he hasn't earned a big ticket, but I think is this going to arbitration? Is that one of those like RFAs that, you know, by the end of the month we might have an answer for? I'm not completely certain, but you know, the Bruins are a class organization. I'm not just saying that because Matt's on the podcast with us today. Like whatever they're going to do, I'm just going to nod my head and say, I'm sure this will work out for them. Yeah, but you're right. Unless you're a Leafs fan, I think the Swayman's a pretty easy kid to root for. And, you know, then they're kind of handing him the keys to the team here with the trade that went down. They got former Jacket, Jonas Corposalo, seemingly backing him up. Pretty good. Get another Finnish goalie to have in the wings if you need them. So I'm interested to see what they do with this contract. And I think just team wise, man, I thought they'd fall off last year. They didn't. So I'm not going to predict that they will this year. I think the Bruins are going to be near the top of the Atlantic, and that's just kind of what they've built over the years there.
Yeah, Grant, I agree with you. Goalies are a lot of times like putters, right? You know, in the
there you go.
Golf, right? It's they're hot until they're not, and you got to switch back. But Swayman will definitely be wearing a Bruins sweater for the foreseeable future for sure. mainly because his mental attitude during that playoff run was really so impressive. You know, he seemed to absolutely embrace the pressure of playoff hockey and wanted the net, even though him and Linus are good friends and were, sharing the net equally during the year. He showed the mental fortitude to really solidify in my mind that he's worth the investment. And I also like it too. He's a Hockey East alumni, being a UMaine guy too, a Black Bear.
Oh yeah, we love that.
One of the better looking hockey jerseys in college hockey.
Here's right. I'd like to also call out too. There's another goalie signing there with Michael DiPietro, who's a Memorial Cup winner with the Windsor Spitfires. He was signed as a backup, and he's not to be confused with Ricky DiPietro, who interestingly enough signed the longest and most lucrative hockey contract in his time when he signed a $67.1 million deal. No, they're not. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Ricky DiPietro is from Lewiston, Maine, and Michael is Canadian from the Windsor area. But Ricky DiPietro is still being paid by the Islanders $1.5 million a year, and he will be till 2029. So he is the Bobby Bonilla of hockey in regards to contracts.
Yeah, if you're gonna associate your franchise with one of the DiPietros, I'd say Boston picked the right one. You don't want to be locked up with that contract. Here's how I see this playing out. I think they get Swayman signed to a high value contract sooner rather than later, definitely before camp. I think
what's high value mean to you? Are you like $4 million a year?
I think they're going to
higher.
It would be higher than that, but I don't think this is a bridge. I don't think this is 3 to 4 years. I think it's longer than that. Maybe it's not 8. Maybe around the 6-year range.
6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say value, you mean value for Sway or value for the Bruins?
Value for the Bruins.
Okay.
Value for the Bruins.
All right.
Which, he's a goaltender and not many goalies are getting the most lucrative deals anymore. So I think, he's not going to shake his head at the offer. It's not going to be like highway robbery for him and his agent. It's just something that the Bruins, I think, are going to maximize on it and getting the best value for term. And Matt mentioned the rising salary cap in years to come, and we're only going to see it go up since the farther we get away from COVID, obviously. So I think they lock him up to a high value contract. I think you're going to have a little bit remaining. There is a unrestricted free agent who is no stranger to the Boston area, James Van Riemsdyk. Last year, I did not realize this. He played in 71 games. He had 38 points. The guy, 35 years old, USA Hockey alum, obviously. He had a good season, and he can still offer something. You extend him a min league contract, even I'd say maximum $1 million for the year. If you've got that space, I think it's low risk, high reward option that the Bruins could maybe capitalize on for maybe just a little more scoring punch. After that, you're going to have a little more space built up through the rest of the season. At the deadline, that's when you go and acquire even more of a scoring punch. We mentioned how well managed this team is. Most contenders, when you see them at this point in the character arc of their success and the storyline, you see their draft capital is depleted. Not so fast for the Boston Bruins. They have managed it. It's been a masterclass on asset management. They have enough draft capital to where they can still be relevant and still go acquire some scoring punch. So I see that playing out at the deadline, which leads me to think they don't move in the standings. They finish second place in the Atlantic Division yet again and go and make a playoff run. Who disagrees with me? Anybody?
I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to bet against the Bruins after what we saw last year. There's some gaps in the middle, but I think they'll have it figured out.
Yeah, I think JVR, James Van Riemsdyk, would add, bottom 6 depth to any team. And I really like what he brings to the power play as well, since he is, excellent in getting front of the net, block, screening goalies, creating confusion. And I'd be surprised if JVR wasn't wearing a Bruins sweater, come season.
There we go.
I don't want to shortchange the Matt. If you got any other Boston takes or Bruins insight, we'd love to hear it. And if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up the Atlantic Division predictions.
I guess one call out here. Thanks, Trent. Jack Edwards, who's been the longtime, voice of Bruins hockey that is, somewhat controversial for his hometown bias and other comments to, Patty Maroon for one. He has retired, Jack. So Jack Edwards, end of an era. Wish him luck. He was, the Bruins version of the Celtics Johnny Most, who might be too old for you guys to remember, but Jack Edwards was a welcome presence and voice inside New England living rooms for a long time. And he got his start doing play-by-play for UNH hockey when he was a student there many a decade ago. So best of luck in retirement, Jack.
Great shout out. Yeah.
Let me echo that. And Matt too, I think we need to speak to it. I see your note here about Todd Angeli. Did I say that right?
Angeli.
Sorry. Todd Angeli, current anthem singer, took over for Rene Rancourt, who we all know and love. Love seeing him on national television anytime the Bruins get that broadcast. Yeah. Have you met him by chance, or have you seen him obviously? And
yeah, I have, because he's a fixture. When Rene Rancourt, who, did the anthem for 42 years, retired, they kind of had an open talent draw to replace him. And Todd Angeli was a longtime bartender at TD Bank North. And so he participated in the tryout. He won the job. And I believe he really does a terrific rendition, both of the United States anthem, but also the Canadian national anthem. And when he first started, I don't think he would securely had the job that he would sing the anthem and then go back underneath and 10 bar for the rest of the game. I would assume now that he's solidified his role as the anthem singer, he no longer 10s bar, but maybe that's the case. But that's just a great story. And yeah, I hope Todd is the anthem singer for the Bruins for many years to come, since he does it with emotion and grace and style.
It's not hard to understand Hardhat Hockey's affinity for the city of Boston, given the amount of blue collar stories that we see constantly coming out of that town. It's the blue collar manufacturers of the United States, it seems like sometimes.
Manufacturers of hockey.
Yeah, really. No kidding.
Yeah,
okay.
American hockey hotbed.
Hardhat Hockey, that concludes the Atlantic Division breakdown over the last couple of weeks, if you've been with us. So as it stands, here's how we see it. We've got the Panthers in first. This is Atlantic Division. Bruins in second. The Bolts third. Wings fourth. In fifth, the Leafs. Now, hypothetically, theoretically, the Atlantic Division could get both wildcard spots. That could still mean a wildcard playoff berth for the Leafs. I don't foresee that happening given some of the Metro talent that we're about to talk about. So, fifth, Leafs. Sixth place, Ottawa Senators. Seventh, Montreal Canadiens. Eighth, Buffalo Sabres. Grant, did you have this any different than me? I know we've kind of hashed this out.
I'd have to go back and listen to the tape. I think we're pretty solid 1 through 5. Maybe I could see Montreal doing a little better than Ottawa, but I think this is a pretty good prediction for late July. I think we're on point here.
Okay.
My only difference, Trent, is I'm more bullish on the Leafs than you have them, and primarily because of Craig Berube. I think Chief is going to come in and make a big impact in that locker room and change the way they play and bring a culture that will put them up there. I believe, not at the top of the division, but right behind Florida and Boston.
It is.
I don't like this phrase all the time, but that seems like an X factor. That's like, will this really change things that we've been seeing? But yeah, I think that's well said, Matt.
It is. This division, I think, is a little easier to predict and foresee the cream rising to the top. And I could be dead wrong about my Leafs take. So, like I said, the Metro division, however, presents a little more of a challenge. There is, outside of the New York Rangers, there's really not a lot of clear paths for the teams that we're going to break down. So let's start with the Philadelphia Flyers. They finished 6th in the Metro division. GM currently Daniel Briere. John Tortorella, famous coach.
My guy.
Famous moments. I remember the hallway scrum when he was in Vancouver.
We don't talk about that, Trent. We don't talk about that. He's matured. Let's put that behind him. He's talked about it. Listen, eyes on the future.
Eyes on the future. They're $800,000 in the negative for cap space. So they do have to make a couple moves. That is going to figure itself out with some of the situations that we're going to talk about. Big moves this offseason. We talked about Travis Konechny, that $8.75 million deal. They signed Bobby Brink, blue chip prospect for them. He's 23, 2-year deal at $1.5 million. Garnet Hathaway, third line center depth, 32 years old, 2x2.4. Eric Johnson, this hurts me, 36 years old, 1 year by $1 million deal. Matvei Michkov, probably one of the bigger blue chip prospects, not just for the Flyers, but in the league, is coming over. He signed his entry level contract. He'll look to mature tremendously with the Flyers. Ryan Johansson, kind of a tumultuous development since he was dealed from the Avs to the Flyers at the trade deadline. Didn't really see eye to eye with Torts, had no interest in playing for the Flyers, didn't even see the ice as a Flyer after that trade took place. So he hasn't played hockey since before the trade deadline, and just recently told Daniel Briere that he's not medically fit to play. So
that's crazy.
Is that a play to essentially try to get out of the Flyers and maybe they move on from him? Is he going to play in the minors? Is he done? I don't know, but it definitely feels like Johansson has zero interest in playing for John Tortorella, rather.
Let me rephrase. I don't think it's crazy that he's hurt. I mean, if he's hurt, he's hurt. The fact that he hasn't played and he's still only 31, he's still got some value. But yeah, that might be where that cap space opens up, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's a $4 million deal. So they're $800,000 in the hole right now in the cap space. That's going to figure itself out naturally here very quickly. The key forwards, I'll start with Owen Tippett, 25 years old, $6.2 million. This kid is a beast. He just like Travis Konechny, and who's a X Factor player. Kind of reminds me of a lower grade Pasternak, Matt. I saw Owen Tippett play live against the Vegas Golden Knights last year in Philly. Very hostile environment to see a game. This kid's a beast. He's a difference maker. He is going to have a big year for the Flyers' success. Morgan Frost, 25 years old. Last year of that $2.1 million deal, which I mentioned earlier, kind of my fantasy dream sheet for the Avs to go after a lower cap hit, which is the only thing that they're able to do right now. We'll talk about them week to come. And then Michkov. Michkov, 19 years old. He's going to have big development and achieve that high ceiling for the Flyers' success for years to come. I mentioned him last, Sean Couturier, 31 years old, $7.75 million deal. He is the captain. It's no secret the team chemistry was rocked a little bit later in the year, but with the relationship between him and head coach John Tortorella, the captain was a healthy scratch for multiple games to end the season, even as they were pushing for a playoff spot. That needs to resolve if they're going to see success this season. Any thoughts here for Flyers forwards to this point?
You did a really great summary of all those guys that are trying. I don't know what to add. The Couturier stuff, we all know Torts has his own style of play or style of coaching, excuse me. Scratching your captain, that's usually worst case scenario for any sort of locker room. But I can't say I'm rooting for the Flyers considering they're in the same division as the Jackets, but I still like seeing Torts on my TV screen doing well and doing when the John Tortorella experience is going well, it's great. So I want to see them kind of make a jump just because there's some guys on this team I do like, but we're going to get into it as we go. The Metro is such a blender and it can go so many different directions. And the Flyers are one of those teams where if they get hot, it's really going to shake up that top three. So we'll see what they got.
Yeah, my take on the Flyers, I just wish Cutter Gauthier was wearing a Flyers sweater this year, not out west in Anaheim. I think, the Flyers obviously aren't an original 16, but I view them as right there, the next step down. Just such a great hockey town, a rich hockey tradition, winning 2 cups in the early 70s, and playing in a city like Philadelphia, if you're able to give it your all and win the fan base over, it's truly special. So
yep.
I wish Cutter Gauthier was wearing a Flyers jersey, but ironically enough, it's kind of like the reverse Eric Lindros situation where, the Quebec Nordiques drafted Eric Lindros in 1991 and Eric said, I don't want to play for the Nordiques. Who knows? He maybe would have been an Av, right, Trent, later on, but and Eric ended up going to the Flyers. But it'll be interesting to see. I got a lot of respect for Jonesy, in the front office, Keith Jones. I am a Torts fan, even though sometimes I get uncomfortable when he's a little too rough on young talent, but I think his intentions are pure and I think he does, build, toughness, and he does, develop players, effectively if they're able to hang in there. But it's too bad that, that Cutter's not wearing a Flyer sweater.
All things considered, Matt, I think that Lindros trade worked out for the Avalanche. So given the return.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Great take, Trent. Great take. Those Nordiques teams with the Stastny brothers and Michel Goulet and the old Adams division was just a terrific talent and a great team to watch.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it yielded Peter Forsberg coming back.
That's right.
Yeah. So that panned out. Yeah, that guy was pretty good. Okay. So you mentioned the Gauthier trade. He obviously fell out of favor with Danny Briere, and Keith Jones went over to Anaheim. Got no slouch in return, though. Jamie Drysdale on the blue line, 22 years old, $2.3 million cap hit, and they saw his returns right away. He started to quarterback that power play alongside other young prospect, Cam York, 23 years old, $1.6 million deal. Both of these guys are fast, move the puck very well. They are quarterbacks, and they will be leaned on heavily for the success of this Flyers team. Ryan Ellis is a veteran, 33 years old. Travis Sanheim, 28, $6.25 million deal. He's kind of the anchor. This is kind of the presence he's been around long enough. A lot of tremendous talent and great leadership. And then Rasmus Ristolainen, he's 29, $5.1 million deal. I wonder if that's not a contract they try to move as they continue to progress with the pieces they built upon in rebuilding this team and capitalizing on the young upside. It's no secret here. Briere and Keith Jones have put the franchise in a really nice spot. Not only have they acquired all of this talent, they also have a tremendous amount of draft capital. They're looking at 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks in 2025 alone. So whether they keep those and maximize all the draft capital they can, or they've got the flexibility to move some of these pieces out and to continue to acquire talent, they've got a lot of movement and a lot of flexibility with this team right now. Here's my keys to success. There's a giant question mark in the crease. At the end of the season, they brought over Ivan Fedotov, I believe from the KHL. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. He's got a 2-year deal, $3.28 million. We didn't see a lot of games played here. He only played 3, 0 wins at the end of the season, 4.95 goals against average, and an .811 save percentage. Now, this is a very small picture. I wonder if a larger chunk we see him play the first 20 games of the season if we don't see obvious improvement from those numbers. Regardless, between him or backup Sam Urson, they need an answer. And if they don't have one quickly, they need to move on quickly. Like I just said, they've got flexibility with their draft capital. They can go and make a move and acquire, even if it's a veteran stopgap guy just for one season, you need to do something quickly if things aren't panning out in the crease. John Tortorella has to be patient. Just as you said, Matt and Grant, this is no secret to you either. He's kind of got a rich history of being a little tough on younger players and maybe stunting their growth and their progression a little bit. Even Bobby Brink this last season saw very limited playing time, often appearing in Torch's doghouse. This kid Michkov coming over, there's no room for that. You've got to capitalize on this kid. You've got to be patient with him. He's got an extremely high ceiling, and if you are just a hammer on him, I promise you're going to reduce some of that ceiling and diminish some of those returns. So maybe they talk to him this offseason. Maybe just, calm him down a little bit. Ease the grip on the reins a little bit as father behind the bench. With that, my prediction, I think they show improvement. I still think there's obviously a little left to be desired here. The question mark in the crease does concern me. This team's only going to get better. They are in a good spot. I have them 6th in the Metropolitan Division. I think they get close again to that wild card spot, but maybe just not yet. But years to come, I'd say look out for this team.
Great take.
Yeah, I think that's excuse me. I think that's pretty well said. I think that they're a team that I could see making like a huge jump here, or I could see them middling a bit. So I'm kind of right in the fence here what I said we didn't want to do, but just the Metro, I think is tough to project right now. And you think you're right to highlight the goalie position. I will say with Ports and younger players that he definitely has his reputation. When he took over the Blue Jackets in 2016, the Jackets were like very young as well. I mean, like Zach Werenski was 18, Seth Jones was still pretty young, and he got a lot out of those guys. Now it took, a half a season for it to kind of pan out, but he can be, we talked about it, he can get a lot out of young guys, or he can maybe, get off to a bumpy start. But I think if they're able to buy in, if they have a good start to the season, we'll see kind of the fruits of that labor pay off a little bit. But he's great to have on your team when you're winning and you're a fan of this team. But you hope that it doesn't run its course. I want to see them get the most out of these young guys while he's still the coach. Hopefully he's the guy for it.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a vision and a plan in Philadelphia that is being executed too. I think your assessment's right on, both you guys, that they're a year or two away from being, strong playoff contenders and being able to make a run.
Okay, let's go down the street. Let's go to New Jersey. The Devils underperformed this season. Many predicted to have not only a playoff presence this past season, but a strong playoff run given the talent, especially in their forward core. They did not achieve that with head coach Lindy Ruff. He was shipped out and obviously rehired with the Buffalo Sabres. They finished 7th in the Metropolitan Division. GM at the helm is Tom Fitzgerald. Head coach over from Toronto, Sheldon Keefe. Talk about that in a second. Cap space, you're looking at $5 million. Notable moves this offseason. Re-signed, no stranger to New Jersey, Tomas Tatar. He's 33, 1-year deal, $1.8 million. Brett Pesce comes over from Carolina, 29 years old, 6 by $5.5 million. Brendan Dillon over from the Winnipeg Jets, 3 by $4 million. And then in goal, which is what they needed, they traded for Jacob Markstrom from the Calgary Flames. They sent over Kevin Ball, a blue chip prospect defenseman, and a 2025 first round pick. Jacob Markstrom this past season achieved 2.78 goals against average and a .905 save percentage on a pretty bad Calgary Flames team. Obviously, veteran goaltender. This provides, I think, what will be a nice answer for them for at least a couple years to come in net, and they desperately needed it. Some of the worst goaltending statistics over this past season, so they will lean on him heavily to figure that position out. Key forwards, Timo Meier, 27 years old, Jack Hughes, 23, $8 million deal. I look for him to explode. I think we've seen.
Absolutely.
We've seen he's only improved, and I think we have yet to see him really tap out that ceiling. Jesper Bratt. I didn't realize Jesper Bratt was only 25. I don't know why I thought he was older.
Yeah, he's still young. Yeah.
$7.88 million. Nico Hischier, 25 years old, $7.25 million. Again, I didn't realize he was only 25. It seems like
we're seeing a theme here.
Yeah, these guys have been with the Devils, it feels like, for a decade. Andre Palat, I loved when he was in Tampa. It's unfortunate to see him have to go, but that is the Stanley Cup tax. 33 years old, $6 million deal. And then center I love, third liner Eric Haula, 33, $3.15 million. Gentlemen, the Devils can fly, and they are going to be high flying this season. And I think that Sheldon Keefe, he experienced high flying forwards in Toronto. The difference is the pressure that was applied to him was so demanding. Grant, thank you for the word. Was so demanding, and I think he felt it. You're looking at a less pressure situation here, but less of a pressure cooker, but potentially just as high of a ceiling with the speed that these guys are going to be able to yield flying up and down the ice. So I look for them to score a ton of goals.
It's crazy to talk about the Devils like this, because for like our lifetime, the Devils were like kind of just a tough team to play against and a tough team to watch. They were always kind of slow moving in like a very technical way, but they're really got some, like you said, some flyers on this team, some guys that can move the puck and are gonna be fun to watch if they're on your TV. So it's a kind of a sexy pick to be like, hey, this is the dark horse in the Metro. But if it comes together, it's tough to see where the holes are, really.
Yeah, Grant, you bring up a good point, right? I think the the Devils are the quietest dynasty in NHL history, winning 3 cups in the late 90s and the early 2000s with, Marty Brodeur and Ken Danico and Scott Stevenson and Scott Niedermayer. But they did it in a way that, wasn't high flying.
It wasn't very popular.
Yeah, the neutral zone trap. But I'm super bullish on what Tom Fitzgerald, the GM's doing. He's from Billerica, Mass, hometown to Mark McLaughlin, who was signed by the Bruins out of BC. And of course, Hall of Famer Tommy Glavine and Mike Glavine, the current NU baseball coach. But what Tom Fitzgerald's doing, Billerica is just a neat hotbed of talent. But Tom Fitzgerald, I love what he's doing with embracing speed, creating an exciting product. I especially like what he did bringing on Katie Madigan as his assistant general manager. Katie Madigan's the, first female in a senior front office role in the NHL that I know of. And Katie's the daughter of Jim Madigan, the Northeastern University athletic director and a hockey legend. Him and Wayne Turner are on the Mount Rushmore of Northeastern hockey. So that 1-2 punch there, I know are going to get them back to where the expectations were 2 years ago. I think the key for them, as you pointed out, is shoring up goaltending, Trent, but also getting off to a good start. I think last year they got off to a tough start. And then, Hughes got injured and they just could never pull out of it. So I think if they, avoid a losing start and get momentum right out of the gates, I think look out for the Devils. And I'm really looking forward to watching them play, as Grant pointed out, because they're just fun. Also, I'd love to see Sheldon Keefe, win. I think Sheldon Keefe is a great coach, won a Calder Cup with the Marlies in the AHL. And I think he learned a lot from his tenure in Toronto and, similar to Bill Belichick in Cleveland going to Boston. I think he's going to do it.
We got a Browns shout out. Let's go. Yeah.
Yep.
On the blue line here, anchor Dougie Hamilton. He's 31, $9 million. We talked about Pesci, Brendan Dillon. Another key piece that they got to be so excited about is Luke Hughes. The Hughes family is paying dividends to the state of New Jersey and Devils fans alike. So he was a finalist for the Calder Trophy this year, which we've mentioned before. As a defenseman, that's very impressive. Keys to success this season. We talked about Markstrom in net. He will have to be big, and I don't think it will be difficult for him to improve upon the stats and goal from last season. Sheldon Keefe, we talked about. A lot of team speed here. He's used to that high-flying offense. This situation has significantly less pressure than that of Toronto, not having to constantly deal with the media and the pundits of Toronto just breathing down your neck.
It never slows down up there.
Ever.
And let's give Jersey's still, it's still the East Coast. It's still that market, but I think they'll be willing to kind of let things come together a little bit over there.
I agree. I look for Luke Hughes to explode along with Jack Hughes. I think the family's going to have a field day. And an under the table move that I included just because it became such a front and center topic in the back half of the season. They locked up enforcer Curtis McDermott to a 3-year deal. It is no secret that they did that in response to the arms race that is occurring across the Hudson River. The battle for the Hudson has never been, well, maybe it's been more real, but it is alive and relevant.
It's back.
It's definitely
a little back.
It seemed like every time the Devils played the Rangers, there was drama and some violence, and they will look to respond to that and win that battle of the Hudson this year as they look to contend with Stanley Cup contender, the New York Rangers, and we'll talk about them later. So, yeah, it's great for hockey. Matt, do you have any take on, while we're talking about fighting, just the Battle of the Hudson? It is relevant, again, and I think fun for the sport.
Well, yeah, I know McDermott is a fan of yours from his days in Colorado, right? And I think him and Matt Reppy were able to, forge some respect by the end of the season. But no, I think there's going to be a lot of passion and a lot of energy, and I'm looking forward to some marquee games between those two teams.
Yeah, it does seem like a destiny that they're gonna find each other. How fun would a playoff matchup, Devils versus Rangers, be? I would pay top dollar to see that on national television. With all this considered, I see clear improvement. They underperformed last season. A lot of that maybe obviously has to do with the stats in net, but the Jack Hughes injury as well. If he stays healthy, Luke Hughes continues to build on his rookie year success. I think this team is destined for second place in the Metropolitan Division, clear playoff berth, and there's a clear path here in a Metro division that is pretty murky. It's not like the Atlantic where the cream is clearly rising to the top. There's a lot of question marks in this division, which is why I think the Devils are, with the talent they have, will be able to navigate through that and capitalize on maybe some middling teams that are still figuring it out in the Metro, like the Philadelphia Flyers.
If they get out to a hot start, if they're able to get out to a hot start, I think they'll remain in that top three. If they're like top three around Thanksgiving, Christmas, that first, you're the horse racing fan, Trent, that first post, they'll be there. But I don't know, second's tough. That's pretty bold, man.
I'm thinking
Respect
second.
for putting it out there.
I think second. I think Coach Keith has a lot to prove this year. I think the team has a lot to prove this year. And I think they get out of the gate strong. At least I hope they do. And I do see them second in the Metropolitan.
Okay.
Oh. Well, we say the Rangers are first. I mean, like collectively,
That's right.
they're probably still up there.
Well,
So Rangers. Yeah.
You could assume, but we haven't done their primer yet, Grant. Maybe I'll drop them down. I don't want to ruin.
Well, so the teams that they got to kind of navigate the Canes and the Islanders would seemingly be the other teams in that top three.
Who you could argue have both kind of slipped. I think Carolina didn't have the best offseason. Do they make the playoffs?
Fair. We've talked.
There's definitely some regression there, I think. So we'll talk about that.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
You kind of shocked me a little bit with the second pick. Because they're still young. It's tough to.
Yeah.
But like you said, if they get hot, I can see it. But all right.
Okay. Everyone ready for the hard hats? Let's do it.
Absolutely.
I'm ready if you're ready.
The Hard Hats of the Week are sponsored by Leroy's Bar. As always, located in the heart of Worcester, Ohio, Leroy's establishment has provided cheap pitchers and a safe haven for all of the Fighting Scots of Worcester since 1969. Make your reservations today. That last line always makes me laugh, Matt. Reservations at Leroy's. Grant, before you hopped on this morning, we were talking about Leroy's and how we got to go.
I went back in February. We had a bit of a reunion down there, a couple of the guys, and it hasn't changed a bit. You know, it's still the same dive. Food, very underrated food for you. Walk in there, you're like, there's no way this kitchen is operating. And then some of the best wings, buffalo wings, I've had in Ohio easily. So shout out to Leroy's. Great post golf spot.
Indeed.
Great spot if you have a rough day, you need to just, find a corner and recharge your batteries. It's what it's there for.
Matt, we used to have what was called Woo Wednesdays. Woo playing off Worcester, obviously, and they sold $5 pitchers. So as you can imagine, there are quite a few in attendance from the College of Worcester just down the street. Grant mentioned the golf course. One of the holes was very close in proximity to the bar, so it was not beyond us to drive the golf carts off the course to the bar, and we'll, finish the round later. Great spot.
Great sponsor too. Love Leroy's.
Yeah. Okay. Hard hat of the week. I'll kick this one off. For me, it's the city. It's Salt Lake City. They were announced to be the home of the Winter Olympics in 2034. I will, like I said, all things considered, I will be there if the circumstances align, cheering on Team USA. How many more opportunities are we going to have in our lifetime to be able to cheer on USA in the great country of the United States? So count on that. Salt Lake City, I'm coming for you. Can't wait.
It's a great one. That's a great pick. My hard hat, I'm giving it to recently re-signed jacket forward Kent Johnson. Got his bridge deal, 3 years, 1.8 million cap hit. We'll talk more about it when we do the Jackets primer. But University of Michigan guy, drafted just a few years ago. We were racking up guys from University of Michigan, which I don't hate. Great program up there. We're keeping it in the Rust Belt. So I'm excited. KJ is here for at least 3 more years. Kind of a prove it deal. Let's see what you got. The front office and coaching staff excited to have him locked up. If the Jackets are going to improve, it's going to be guys like him that eventually take the next step. So congrats to KJ. We're starting to build a little momentum here in Columbus. We got the new GM. We got the coach hired. got some, some of these are RFAs signed. It feels good. You starting to look forward to the season a little bit.
Okay, Trent, my hard hat is, and I got to tee it up by, doubling back with mentioning Kate Madigan, her doing a terrific job as the assistant general manager in New Jersey Devils. My hard hat goes to another trailblazer, Jessica Campbell, becoming the NHL's first woman full-time coach. Well done, Seattle Kraken. I know she's going to add value to, I think it's Ron Francis in that front office, and hats off to her and hats off to the organization.
Yeah, love the pick.
That's a great one.
Yeah, Matt, that's really a great pick. Boys, that's going to wrap it up for this week. We wrapped up the Atlantic Division. Nice takes on the Boston Bruins, introduced the Metropolitan Division, and we will continue that next week as we start to talk about the Jackets, maybe the Rangers, maybe the Pittsburgh Penguins. So a lot to discuss there. Certainly looking forward to it. Boys, I hope you all have a great weekend watching the Olympics. I know that's what I'm going to be doing today as I'm sitting here next to my 1-year-old Labrador pup who's currently sleeping on my leg. So yeah, she's been very present.
Tell her I said hi, Trent.
She's been very present this whole episode. I hope you didn't hear too many of the squeaks. I tried to mute it. She got some new toys that she's just squeaking all over the place. So Matt, we really appreciate you getting on the show again. As always, the support for the podcast does not go unnoticed. Thank you so much. And we definitely will do it again.
I love what you guys are doing for the game. Keep it up, guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks you for that. I'm happy I got to come on this time and talk with you. I really enjoyed it.
Well, boys, from Hardhat Hockey here, we're going to wrap it up for the week. We'll see you next weekend. We love you guys. Everybody have a great week. Get that blue collar work ethic kicked into high gear, and we'll go score some goals next weekend. We'll see you then.